Welcome back, my dear. Come in, settle in, and let the day melt away for a while. Tonight, I want to take you somewhere different. Not a snowy village this time, not a quiet forest. Tonight, we're going to the sea. There's a story in this journal about a night the entire ocean lit up like the stars had fallen into the water. I know how that sounds, but I promise you, my dear, every strange word of it is true. And by the end, you might just believe the sea remembers things too. In a small fishing village where the houses leaned close together against the wind, there lived a girl named Mira. Her father was a fisherman, and most nights Mira sat on the rocks by the harbour, waiting for his boat to come home safely. The sea at night was always just dark, deep, quiet, endless dark, with only the moon for company. Until one particular night, when Mira saw something that made her drop the lantern she was holding. The water itself had begun to glow. Not the whole ocean, not at first, just a thin glowing line right where the waves touched the shore, a soft blue-green light, like the colour of a summer sky just before dawn. Mira stood frozen, watching it shimmer and pulse with every gentle wave. Then, out on the dark water, she saw her father's boat cutting through the glow, and behind it, a long glowing trail followed the boat like a ribbon of light. She had never seen anything like it in her whole life, and neither, it turned out, had anyone else in the village. By the time her father's boat reached the dock, half the village had gathered on the shore, whispering, pointing, some of them afraid, most of them simply amazed. The sea is alive tonight, an old fisherman named Costa murmured, watching the glowing water lap against the rocks. Mira's father stepped off the boat, laughing in disbelief, holding up his net. It was heavier than usual, much heavier. Inside it, glimmering faintly, was the largest catch of fish he'd brought home all year. It had been a hard season for the village. The fish had been scarce for weeks, and more than one family had started to worry about the winter ahead. But that single glowing night changed everything. Word spread quickly. Old Costa, who had fished these waters for 60 years, said his own grandmother used to speak of nights like this. She called it the sea's gift, and she said it only came when the water wanted to give something back. Mira couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, lying in bed, she made a decision. She was going to find out exactly why the sea had glowed. For the next few nights, Mira sat on the same rocks, waiting,
watching, but the water stayed dark, ordinary, disappointingly plain. She asked old Costa why it wouldn't happen again. He simply shrugged and said, "The sea does what it wants, child. It doesn't glow just because you're watching." Frustrated, Mira almost gave up entirely. Then, on the 7th night, without any warning at all, it happened again. This time, Mira didn't just watch from the shore. She waded straight into the shallow water, gasping at how cold it was, and knelt down, running her hands through the glowing water. Everywhere her fingers moved, the light seemed to follow, swirling and sparkling around her hands like liquid stars. She laughed out loud, alone on the beach, utterly delighted. And that's when she noticed something even stranger. The light only appeared where the water moved. Still water, just a few steps away, stayed completely dark. But wherever the water was disturbed, splashed, stirred, or touched, the glow appeared instantly, like the sea was answering every movement with light. Mira scooped some of the glowing water into a small jar and ran home, eager to show her father. But by the time she reached her door, the water in the jar had already gone dark and still. Whatever this magic was, it seemed the sea wouldn't let her carry it away. Now, my dear, here is something true, something wonderful, that I only learned much later, and it made this story even more magical to me, not less. In real oceans, all over the world, there are tiny living creatures, far too small to see with just your eyes, called plankton. Some of these tiny creatures can actually make their own light, a glow scientists call bioluminescence. When the water is calm, they simply drift, quiet and dark. But the moment the water moves around them, a wave, an oar, a hand, or even a swimming fish, they light up in a flash of blue-green light, all at once, by the millions. Mira wasn't imagining magic. She was watching millions of tiny living lights, answering every single touch. Mira didn't know the scientific name for it, not back then. All she knew was that the sea had its own quiet magic, waiting patiently in the dark for the smallest touch to wake it. She began visiting the shore every single night after that, not always finding the glow, but always hopeful. And slowly, other children in the village started joining her, waiting together on the rocks, laughing every time the water lit up beneath their feet. It became a tradition nobody had planned, but everybody loved. Years passed. Mira grew up, married a fisherman herself, just like her father, children of her own, and every single one of them grew up knowing exactly what to do on a calm, dark night by the sea. They'd run down to the rocks, dip their hands into the water, and wait, breathless, hopeful, for that first spark of blue-green light. Old Costa, long grey-bearded by then, used to sit and watch them from a distance, smiling to himself. "The sea remembers who loves it," he'd say. "That's why it keeps answering back." So tonight, my dear, if your mind feels dark and quiet, like still water waiting, know that there is light in you too, waiting patiently for morning to stir it awake. You are safe, you are held, and the world is softer and more magical than it sometimes seems. Next time, I'll tell you about a mountain where the clouds moved like a slow, gentle river, but that's a story for another night. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe Grandma Rose Whisper Tales for Sleep. I will come back again. Sleep now. Sweet dreams, my dear.